Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And every day I wake up like a little child opening a Christmas present because I meet so many fascinating people from all over the world. My guest today is coming from the United States. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your fascinating story with us today.
Hello, Gertrude. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Morgan Templar, and I am the CEO of First CDO Partners. I'm based out of Chester, West Virginia, which is about 35 miles west of Pittsburgh. So I'm a Pittsburgh local. I am 56 years old, and I have taken a very interesting journey in my life. I actually lead organizations in understanding their data and their information, where it is, how they can use it, how they can best utilize it to create amazing things. And my mission is to create a better world by providing better information. And I have a very unusual story. It's certainly not a linear journey that got me into data and data governance. I have no formal training in computers or engineering or anything technical. My undergraduate degree started in music and ended in communications. And my master's of healthcare administration was more about hospital care and how we actually manage that. But I have found that everywhere that I go, in every organization I've worked for, data and information are really the key components that unite us and that can help us solve problems in ways that we never imagined before. I call myself a visionary because in point of fact, I see this amazing future, just this opportunity for us as humans to come together, to use this technology that we have and actually understand each other in a much more meaningful and deep way, because data is data, right? We all have a name, we all have a place that we live, we all have demographics of, do you have a gender, do you have a height, do you have a spouse? There are things about us that are true regardless of where we live. But the things that make us different, the things that bring spice into our life, that's also information, and that is context. And I love that bringing together of context, of information and data and context, because it is something that brings you forward. Now, when I say my journey has been very interesting, I've actually traveled and actually moved from my job coast to coast 3 times. I always say I go where the work is, but the reality of it is I go where the interesting, exciting work is. I always get cherry picked and asked to come and fix this big problem or transform this big solution, because we actually need to do something better than we were doing it. And you are known as somebody who can come in, quickly assess what you're seeing, and then help us find a path forward and move us forward in that direction. And I love that. And I appreciate so much the people that have taught me and helped me understand that. as I said, I'm not technically trained, and yet I've learned from my family. I've learned from my friends. I've had the opportunity with employers to take ongoing education, and I've taught myself how to code. I've taught myself how to lead a team of engineers. I've taught myself about APIs and interoperability and all of these new chat GPT and what is a large language model and how does it work, and all of these new things that have come about to bring us together as a society and as a world. Most of that I've learned on my own, and I've learned it on my own because I have this belief, and I believe this, and I believe it's true for you as well. If someone can do it, I can do it, because why not? I mean, really, if it's a learnable skill, if there's education, if there's example, well, I can learn from all of those, and I can embrace what I don't know and be willing to say, I don't know that, but I'm going to put in the time and effort to learn it. And I've spent my entire life just learning the next thing and being ready for the next opportunity and always having an open mind. And when I started data governance, I should take a breath. The first time I ever started a data governance program, I had never started a data governance program. I had no one to go to. I had no books to read. I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, someone's doing it. So I found some webinars and I went and I listened to what they were saying. And I realized, you know what, this is just like any other kind of governance. You have a charter and you have people who need to have certain roles and responsibilities. And I made it up as I went. And 6 months later, I went and took a class that I had signed up for 6 months before and realized I had already eclipsed what I had learned in that class. And so I wrote my first book, Get Governed, Building World-Class Data Governance Programs, as a guide for the next person. What are the 15 things you need to do? Check, 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 so that you understand what it is to bring information together in a way that makes it usable, understandable, transparent, and secure. And that was my journey of really coming forward into this amazing data world. And now I'm working with data leaders around the world, mapping AI ethics and what we're doing with privacy and how we use analytics and models and how we make them better so that we can create a better world. And it's an astounding group of people. And I'm so honored to get to be part of that. But I also know that anyone could be part of that. I know that my journey isn't so unique that it's not followable. Anyone can be anything they want to be. You simply have to believe that that's who you are. So with that, I will tell you a little bit more about my personal background. So I am the youngest of 9 children, and I have 6 sisters and 2 brothers. My parents and down have 180 descendants. And so I come from a very large family. So when I said earlier, I've learned from my family, it's like having a university class with you, because I have people from all walks of life that are part of my family. And my mother taught us an amazing lesson when she was with us. Everyone in our family is always part of our family, and they are always welcome. And even as our family has gone through trials or divorce or loss or passing away of a child, everyone is there for each other. We show up. We're available. I've learned from my family. I've learned from the traditions of my parents that family matters, and family is your first concern. But for me, because I travel so often and I'm always in a different place and I never live close to my family grows with me everywhere I go. And this virtual family is a big part of who I am and why I feel so confident in knowing that what I need to do, I can find someone who can help me learn it. I can find someone who can teach me. And I have connections all around the world. We talk on LinkedIn. We talked on WhatsApp. We have the ability to connect with each other, support each other, and understand each other's culture. And I literally mean globally, off of every continent, we have people in our group where we talk about data leadership, because it's a little bit geeky, but we love it. And all of us love it. And I know that it's just one journey that brings me forward and has brought my friends forward. data is such a new field as a discipline that we kind of get to build it as we go, which is an amazing place for women because we're such great problem solvers. And so as women, we can get together and we can brainstorm, and we don't have the ego of I'm afraid to ask a question or to say, I just don't know. And somebody is willing to step in and say, well, here's what I've tried, and well, I've tried this, and help each other. And that has been one of the greatest blessings in my life, is having this global family. And I feel like that's an important part of the stories that we're building going forward, the stories that we're building for ourselves, for our lives, for our families, the legacy that I will leave behind for my children, and that I'm bringing to them as they see my example, that everyone in your life matters, and they should matter, and you should be able to resonate with them and their experience and their story, but also be willing to share yours. And I think those are the key things that really kind of define me, who I am, and what I do. I worked mostly in healthcare for the past 22 years. In the last year and a half, I've worked in a much broader field of just data in general, working with financial organizations and companies that are service providers, and consulting with banks, and just many different things that I've done before. And each time I learn that there's something new that I need to learn, and I'm okay with that. And I think that that is the thing that brings me peace and brings me joy, is that I'm okay with not knowing, and I'm okay with uncertainty, and I'm okay with asking for help, because it doesn't lessen me in any way to not know. It strengthens me to know that I have people around me who will lift me up. And that's pretty much my story.
Oh man, Morgan, just listening to you speak, I can hear a woman who has reinvented herself many, many times in your life and doing it the non-conventional way. A lot of women think that everything has to be linear. You have to start at a certain point and then progress, in a linear fashion, but you haven't done that. Now, data and the importance of data in the world that we're living in now is absolutely crucial. We're living in an information age,
Mhm.
and the collection of that information is critical. One, for businesses to succeed, for them to know the employees who are working for them and the customers that they serve. Now, data governance is an interesting space. We're all scared and insecure about the information we put on websites when you apply for a job and what actually happens to that information. So, take us for a moment into the world of data governance. What are the things that organizations have to think of? One, to protect the information that we entrust them with, and really use that information for good.
So I think that there are, I guess I would say, 2 or 3 things that are really critical. To really understand what data governance is simply an opportunity for an organization to put structure and define policy and set guardrails around the information that they use every day. As we are in an information age, and there is so much information floating around about all of us, it's more important than ever to have those policies and those guardrails set. An example of that is keeping private your public or your personally identifiable information. Your social security number, your national ID, those are things that should not be publicly published anywhere. We may need them for transactions within our organization, so we may have asked you to provide them, but we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that inside our company, only the right people have the right to see that information, and only the right people outside of our company would ever have that information shared with them. So we have an obligation for that. And data governance is a structure to help us understand how to do that. We have a saying in data governance that the business owns the data. But if you look around at most organizations, it seems like your IT team, your information technology team, those technology guys, they own your data, right? Well, they really don't. They own the container, and they make sure that the container is safe, and they make sure that the container doesn't have holes and it's not leaky. But the business, the people who actually transact with your information, who interact with you on the phone, who open an account with you, those are the people who actually own that information that's in that container. And so it's very important that they understand the regulations that are on their industry, that they have an understanding of what is appropriate use for their information that they are using in a transaction, and that that information is shared within the organization. So doing courses on data literacy and helping people understand what is appropriate use, what are our policies on how we use this information. Data governance provides that structure for all of those things to happen. And it also provides a decision-making body for how you share information with other organizations. So it is just really that simple. It's policy, it's structure, and it's a decision-making body.
Now, unless you know your data as an organization, you can't fully serve your customers and you can't fully appreciate the people who work for you. So, why is the analysis of data important, do you think?
I think it's really important that we are analyzing our data and that we understand what we can do with it. Data for good is a really important aspect of our obligation as data practitioners. We do in healthcare, there's an area of study called social determinants of health. And that's where we understand who the patients are in healthcare. What are those social factors? Where do they live? What is their economic factors? Are they in a food desert? And by a food desert, I mean there's not a grocery store that's walkable or easily reached with a bus or some other kind of public transportation. We look at those areas and we look at the demographics, we look at the higher mortality rates, and we look at different disease categories that occur in different geographies. And with those social determinants of health, we can analyze and create products, and we can create structures within our community to say, we need to go out and help these people. I worked for a hospital organization, maybe 10 years ago, and we had done exactly that and identified that lower income people who were on some kind of state-sponsored welfare didn't have access to fresh grown organic vegetables. And so once a week, we created a farmer's market where they could come in and specifically buy the fresh vegetables and fresh food from with their welfare card, which is not something that's ordinarily allowed. And that opened up such a community as people started bringing in, I crocheted this hat. Can I trade it for this? And I've built this with clay. I've created some plates and cups, and I'd like to transfer that for wealth and for money, and to be able to have a barter society in a place where people don't really think of that in today's world. There are still people who are creating things with their hands and trading them for the things that they need for life. And we would never have known that if we had not started a program that said we need to bring fresh fruits and vegetables to this group of people.
Love that. And your example of the hospital is really good. You know, I'm working for a company called Diversity Atlas, and we recently did a survey on their staff, and they were trying to see if they had enough people who could service the immigrant community where this hospital was, especially in terms of languages. You know, going into a hospital and you don't speak English, how do you explain what's wrong with you? How do you get the right treatment? So you're right. Knowing the information helps organizations serve their clients better and look after their staff as well. Now, if I could take you back to the younger you, the young woman who started on this journey, going into business, now becoming an entrepreneur, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, based on what life has taught you, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Well, the first one is one that I will share with a little bit of irony, but take a class on etiquette. I wish that I had learned earlier how to behave in certain situations. I grew up in a very, very poor family, and we didn't have a lot of social interactions. So I would go back and I would say, go and take a class on etiquette so that you understand better how to behave in certain situations, and maybe make a few less mistakes than you made going up for when I came up without any sense at all about what was normal or accepted. And I think the second thing would be share your knowledge more freely, mentor sooner, and be mentored. I always had a difficult time finding a mentor for myself, so I really didn't have mentors. And it wasn't until I found the opportunity to be a mentor that I realized that I looked back and there were people in my life that were mentoring me. And I didn't realize it because we didn't have a formal mentoring arrangement. I wish I would have understood better the mentoring relationship of being a mentee as well as being a mentor, and how important it is. Even still, I have a mentor today, and I'm a mentor to others because we still have things to share with each other. And I think the third thing would be, it's great to go fast, but don't take yourself quite so seriously. Just relax a little, take a few more deep breaths, recognize that people respond better to your understanding of them and their situation than your escalation of, we'll say, emotion. I would say that there were times when I would get angry when things were not going well, and I wish that I had told myself, you need to just take a chill pill, just take a breath, and that's not how to go forward.
I love it. Now, I know that you're a mentor and a champion for women in data and technology, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Tell me a little bit about that part of your life. What initiatives have you been involved in, and what should organizations be thinking about in that direction?
It's a really interesting it's an interesting question, because I know that we talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how important that is, and what that means to us as a society, and the criticality of that. But what I have found is that I didn't ever, I guess I would say I didn't start out by having an idea of wanting to create diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just have always had a very diverse group of friends, and people from all walks of life. And I had an opportunity to open a brand new office in Salt Lake City, which is a fairly monochromatic city. But I wanted a diverse group. So I was hiring 30 people for a job for credentialing providers, which is not something people really know how to do. So I already knew I was going to be training everyone on the skills. So I wasn't looking for the skills. What I wanted was a mix of people that represented our society, that represented our community. And so in order to get that group of people together, I didn't go through the standard recruiting. I went and put flyers up in every community center. I went to parks and I put flyers up on park bulletin boards. I went to restaurants and businesses in all different areas around where our office was going to be. And I just said, we are looking for people who are willing to learn, who are willing to learn a new skill, who have critical thinking ability or want to learn to have it. And, I brought together an incredibly diverse group of people. And it was the first time I'd ever had the opportunity to really form an entire team from scratch. And I learned how much we learned from each other. It wasn't always easy. We had culture shock, and we had to learn how to work with each other. But after about 2 years of really being a team and recognizing that as a team being more diverse and having different ideas, we were stronger, and actually in our organization became the strongest and most productive team. I look back and I know that it is because we thought about things in a different way, because we thought of things in a way that included more points of view than just a single location. And so I have always taken that forward. And as I've built teams, whether it's 400 or 4, I want to make sure that I have a good mix of culture, of thought, of age, of gender, and that we can bring that in and everyone is welcome to speak and everyone's voice is heard.
That brings me to my next question on intersectionality. You know, a lot of times somebody applies for a job and they're judged on the qualifications they have, and that's about it. Yet somebody might have lived in several countries, they might have been born in a certain location and then relocated to somewhere else. Their ancestry isn't taken into account because, you know, your parents, your grandparents' experience is part of who you are as well. So why is intersectionality something that all employers should be taking into consideration when they are hiring new staff?
I would say that the key to that is because we have this newly remote world, and we can work from anywhere. We have the opportunity to bring people into our work life that are from different places. When I think about hiring and I think about my own experience, and I am not I'm not trained in computers. I'm not an engineer. And yet I can sit down with an engineer and talk tech with them. And I can translate that tech talk to one of my business leaders or to our CEO and let them understand what it is that we're actually trying to build and why it matters. That ability to understand each other, that ability to say, there are many ways to learn a skill. And data and technology isn't any different really than being able to classify and sort and file papers or put books on a shelf in a library. It is all about code. It's all about structure and order. And so for my data world, having people from different backgrounds who've come through different sets of experience makes for a richer conversation, better challenging of the challenge at hand, better, when I say challenge, better inspection of the current situation, because we have different ideas. And I think that's really critical. We need to be able to say, well, you learned that in a bakery and I learned that in school, but we both understand it. So why do I have to beat a bot to get a job, right? Why can't you understand my experience and my skills didn't necessarily come because I graduated from Harvard summa cum laude with, a computer engineering degree. I can lead a data team as well as anyone.
Absolutely awesome. Now, the rooms that you sit in have very few women, I'm sure. What is that experience and how can that be changed in the future going forwards?
You're completely right. Almost every room I walk into, I am the only woman. And I have literally sat in a room, and I would say, I'm going to answer your second question first. How do we change it? We change it by speaking up. And I'm going to give you an example. I was in a room with leaders and my boss was directly across from me, white male, a little bit older than me, but not much. And everybody who reported to both of us was in this semicircle between us. And we walked around and everybody talked about how diverse and inclusive we were and what a wonderful organization it was. And to my left is one of my directors, a white male, but a homosexual. And he IMs me next to me. Do you feel like this is a very inclusive room? And I just replied back, no. And I didn't say anything else. So when it got to him, he actually stood up and he said, look around at this room. There's one woman, one person whose skin is not white, and one person who is not straight. How diverse and how inclusive do you feel? And that was an amazing, empowering moment for me to have somebody stand up and not only support me and speak up for me, but I didn't have to be the bad guy all the time. I didn't have to be the one all the time saying, guys, we need to have more inclusivity. We need to have more diversity. It's important, because I'm always saying that. And so to have someone else say it for me and with me at my side made all the difference. And it had more impact than if I had just said it as the last person in the line.
And that's where we need the allies who speak on our behalf in situations like this. Okay, so my last question for you is this. I'm now going to have a little thought experiment with you, and I'm going to teleport you into the future. You're now 90 years old. You're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your dogs, your cats, your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And you could have a conversation with the future you. This 90-year-old woman, this wise woman who's led you to that point throughout your life. If you could have a conversation with her, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
I would say thank you. And I would say, it's such a meaningful moment as you describe that. And I feel that my heart swelling of being able to meet this woman who's had amazing experiences and live an amazing life. And I'm so grateful that she made it, and that she's sitting there with her family and dogs and cats around. I would love to know how she felt about everything that I haven't done yet. I would love to hear her wisdom, because I know that if I look back and talk to 30-year-old me, I would also have a lot of wisdom to share. And I know that it would be very humbling to see 90-year-old me and the things that I know that I'm still going to accomplish between now and then. But mostly there's just this huge feeling of gratitude, of a life well lived, and a life well appreciated.
Morgan, the reason why I like to ask people this question is sometimes we forget that wise woman is already in us. And all we have to do is to tap into the essence of who we're becoming. We are born with all the knowledge, all the skills, everything you need to leave this planet a better place than we found it. So I go into meditation sometimes when I get stuck, and I tune into that essence, and I just ask questions, what is my next move? And I sleep on that, and I wake up in the morning and these light bulb moments come up. But thank you for thanking yourself, because you're right. You are on the way of becoming that amazing woman who's making a difference. And that appreciation really came through at the end there. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's such an amazing moment, especially for women. I would say those of us over 50 who have had the opportunity to bring a lot of our life forward. And we're at a moment of inflection where society is changing, and we've been the people who've solved the problems. I say that we're the fix-it generation. We've been the ones that go in and we're the problem solvers and we fix everything. Well, the world doesn't need that like it did 10 years ago. So how do we reinvent ourselves to be relevant, to be important, and to continue to be leaders? And this is that inflection moment where we need to support each other and just say, you go, you got it, I've got it, let's go together.
I love it. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is connecting some phenomenal women. We are coming to West Virginia later this year. And Morgan, you're hopefully going to be one of our speakers at our first conference in West Virginia. Tune in again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Morgan, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you, Gertrude.
Bye for now, everybody. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open,